Okay, I want to start today with a question that uh, sounds like a trap, but I promise it isn't. How old do you really feel?
Is this the part where I'm supposed to lie and say 25?
Right. We all want to say 25, but I mean, physically,
Yeah.
when you wake up, do your joints? Do they know what year it is?
Ah, okay. I see where you're going.
Because we usually treat feeling old as this really subjective, personal thing, You're only as old as you feel, that whole cliche.
Sure. It's framed as a mindset. If you think young, you are young.
Except, what if it's not just a mindset? What if feeling old is actually a measurable medical reality? And it depends almost entirely on where you live.
And that is exactly what we're going to unpack today. It's a fascinating and frankly kind of a startling new way to look at longevity. We're diving into a massive piece of research from the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation, the IHME.
And massive is not an exaggeration. I mean, they looked at data from 195 countries.
The whole globe, basically. And the big finding really dismantles that idea that aging is just, biology or genetics.
Right. This study suggests aging is largely a product of policy, geography, and culture.
And the results show this 30-year gap, a literal generation between the countries where people stay young the longest and the ones where people get old the fastest.
So today we're going to look at the winners, these super ager nations, and then, the places where the system is failing. But first, we have to talk about how they measured this.
Yeah.
Because they didn't just ask people, hey, does your back hurt?
No, not at all. They used a very specific and slightly grim metric called DALYs.
Dailies.
It stands for Disability Adjusted Life Years.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't spent time in public health grad school, let's unpack what a daily is. What are we actually measuring? Because usually we just talk about life expectancy.
Right, and that's the problem. Life expectancy is just the odometer on your car. It tells you how many miles it ran before the engine died.
Doesn't tell you if the ride was smooth.
Exactly. Or if the wheels were falling off for the last 50,000 miles.
That's a great analogy. So dailies measure the condition of the car while it's still on the road.
Precisely. The researchers looked at 92 specific age-related conditions. Things like heart disease, chronic pain, memory loss, hearing issues, even loose teeth.
Wow, okay.
And they calculated the specific age where, on average, a person in a given country starts to feel the burden of those diseases.
And to standardize it, they used a global 65-year-old as the benchmark.
That's right. They took the average health profile of a 65-year-old from around the world, someone with a certain amount of aches and pains, and then they asked, at what age do people in this country hit that same wall?
So in some places, you hit that wall at 76. In others, you might hit it at 45.
You got it. And the lead author, Angela Weicheng, she makes this crucial point. This isn't just about vanity. This is economics.
Because if your population feels 65 when they're actually 50,
Yeah.
your workforce just collapses.
Right. You retire early, you can't work, and that shrinks the tax base and, just explodes healthcare costs. It's a huge drag on a country's stability.
It's the difference between a country of contributors and a country of dependents. So let's get into the data. Who is winning this race against time?
All right, so sitting at the absolute top of the list is Switzerland.
Switzerland, mountains, chocolate, expensive watches. Why are they aging so well?
So in Switzerland, the average person doesn't start feeling those standard 65-year-old health problems until they're 76.
76. That is 11 years of bonus youth compared to the global average.
11 years. It's a long time.
That's a whole second career.
Yeah.
Or seeing your grandkids graduate high school. It's a lot.
It is. And the main driver is probably what you'd expect, the healthcare system. They have something called a Healthcare Access and Quality, or HAQ, score. Theirs is 95.6 out of 100.
Which is basically an A+ on the global report card.
It's as close to perfect as you can get. If you get sick in Switzerland, the system catches you, and it's high-quality universal access. But, and this is the really interesting part, it's not just the medicine.
Okay.
There's a really strong correlation with the happiness factor.
I saw this in the notes. They rank 5th in the World Happiness Report. But I always wonder, is that a chicken or an egg situation? Are they happy because they're healthy or healthy because they're happy?
I think it's a feedback loop. But the science on optimism is getting a lot stronger. We know that chronic stress and pessimism, they increase cortisol.
The stress hormone.
Right, and high cortisol causes inflammation, and inflammation is basically the engine of aging. It breaks down cells, damages arteries. The Swiss just benefit from high social support, low corruption, high personal freedom. They aren't just not sick, they're secure.
Secure, that's a great word for it. It's the absence of that background anxiety that just grinds you down. Now, Number 2 on the list, we leave Europe and head over to Asia. Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore basically ties with Switzerland.
Yeah.
They also delay those aging problems until they hit 76.
I want to pause here for some context because a lot of our listeners are in the U.S. or the U.K. How does the U.S. stack up here?
Well, the U.S. isn't in the top 10. In the U.S., people start feeling those 65-year-old symptoms at 68, just barely above average.
So an American loses 8 years of healthy life compared to someone in Singapore.
It's a pretty stark difference. And a big reason is that the U.S. ranks 37th in healthcare quality, while Singapore, the WHO, ranks them 6th.
Okay.
But Singapore does something the U.S. definitely doesn't do. They gamify health.
I love this part of the research. This is where policy meets behavioral psychology.
It really is. The Singaporean government is incredibly hands-on. So they looked at the data and realized, okay, diet and movement are the issues. So they launched the Healthier Dining program. They actually work with restaurants to make the healthy food cheaper.
Wait, so the opposite of everywhere else. Usually the salad costs $15 and the burger is $5?
Exactly. They just flipped the economic incentive. If the healthy food is the cheapest option, people buy it. And then there's the National Steps Challenge.
Tell them about the step counters.
The government literally hands out free step counters to its citizens.
And they pay you.
In a way, yeah. If you hit your activity targets, increasing your steps day over day, you can win cash, vouchers, prizes.
See, that is brilliant. We know nagging people just doesn't work. Eat your vegetables is boring, but walk 10,000 steps and win money? That's something that actually works.
It's a perfect example of a nudge. They're designing an environment where the healthy choice is the easiest choice and the most rewarding one.
So we've got Swiss security and Singaporean strategy. Who takes the bronze?
We stay in Asia for numbers 3 and 4, South Korea and Japan.
And these two are grouped together because their secret sauce is pretty similar, right?
Very similar. They both delay aging by about a decade compared to the global average. And the driving force here is almost certainly diet, specifically the lack of obesity.
The numbers here are just wild. Japan's obesity rate is 3%.
3%. South Korea is around 5%. You compare that to the global average, which is almost 20%. Or the U.S., which is hovering near 40%.
That is just a massive physiological difference. If you aren't carrying that extra weight, you're putting so much less strain on your heart, your joints, your whole system.
It preserves the body. And it's not just about calories, it's the type of food. Both cuisines rely so heavily on fish and, crucially, fermented foods.
Kimchi in Korea, miso in Japan.
Right. And we're hearing so much now about the gut microbiome. These countries have been eating probiotics for centuries, long before it was a trend.
It's just part of the culture?
Exactly. A healthy gut reduces systemic inflammation. And we have to mention the blue zone connection. Okinawa, Japan is one of those famous blue zones places with the highest concentration of people living to 100.
That's Dan Buettner's work.
Yes. And he estimates that something like 60% of the longevity in these zones is related to diet.
60%. Wow. That is a number that makes you want to put down the processed food.
It definitely makes you rethink the grocery list.
But speaking of diet, number 5 on our list is a total paradox. Italy.
Ah, yes. The Italian paradox.
Because when I think Italy, I think olive oil and tomatoes, sure. But I also think of cigarettes.
You are not wrong. Italians have let's say, a cultural fondness for smoking that usually correlates with terrible health outcomes.
Right. And yet,
yeah,
they are super agers. They delay illness about as long as the Japanese.
They do.
So how are they cheating the system? Is the olive oil just that good?
Well, the Mediterranean diet definitely helps. It's kind of the gold standard for heart health. But the researchers think the secret ingredient might actually be time.
Time.
The speed at which they live. Italy is the birthplace of the slow food movement. It's the complete antithesis of fast food culture, where you're eating in your car.
Or the sad desk salad.
The sad desk salad is the enemy of longevity.
I'm so guilty of that. Eating a sandwich with one hand while typing with the other.
Right. And there's a quote in the source material from Marco Belasco, an Italian food expert. He says, eating fast is not at all part of our culture. Our meals are relaxed.
So it's the cortisol thing again.
It has to be. Think about the mechanism. Digestion uses the parasympathetic nervous system, that's rest and digest. But if you are stressed or rushing, you're in fight or flight mode.
So your body isn't actually processing the nutrients correctly because it thinks it's running from a bear.
That's the theory. If you spend 2 hours at lunch socializing, laughing, you are lowering your stress hormones. And that recovery time seems to buffer the negative effects of other things like smoking.
That is fascinating. So the Swiss have security, the Singaporeans have incentives, the Japanese and Koreans have clean fuel, and the Italians have relaxation.
Different paths to the same destination, but now we have to look at the other side of the map. Because this study wasn't just a highlight reel, it exposed a really devastating gap in global equity.
Yeah, we need to talk about the bottom five.
Mm.
Because if the top countries are superagers, these populations are essentially aging in fast forward.
It's tragic. The country ranking last number 195 out of 195 is Papua New Guinea.
And the stats here are just, they're hard to wrap your head around.
They are. In Papua New Guinea, people start feeling those 65-year-old health problems in their late 40s.
Late 40s, that's a 30-year difference from Switzerland.
30 years of healthy life, gone. The burden of disease there is 475% higher than in the U.S. Life expectancy for men is just 56.
And the source material highlights something really important. Papua New Guinea isn't poor in resources. It has gold, copper, oil.
No, this isn't a land without wealth. It's a failure of infrastructure, a classic resource curse. The wealth just doesn't reach the public health system.
Right.
There's a quote from a Dr. Anup Gurum at the WHO that just stuck with me. He described the health system there as a paper castle where everything is on fire.
That is a vivid and terrifying image.
It means the basics aren't there. Malnutrition is the #1 driver of death. Preventable diseases like polio and tuberculosis, things the Swiss haven't worried about in decades, are soaring.
It makes you realize how fragile health really is.
Yeah.
We think of it as so personal, but if the garbage isn't picked up or the water isn't clean, your personal choices don't matter nearly as much.
You can't out-diet a collapsed healthcare system.
And looking at the rest of the bottom five, the Marshall Islands, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, there's a pretty clear geographic trend here.
Yeah, these are Pacific Island nations. Geography plays a huge role. Isolation makes healthcare delivery so expensive and difficult.
Sure.
But there's also the issue of, imported diets replacing traditional ones, which has led to these incredibly high rates of diabetes.
And then there's Afghanistan, also in the bottom five, but for a very different reason.
Right. Afghanistan is the only non-island nation in that bottom group. And the data here is just sobering. The leading driver of disability isn't heart disease or cancer, it's conflict and terror.
Which brings us back to that idea of stress in the body, but on just a much more extreme scale.
It's the ultimate stressor. Living in a war zone keeps the body in a permanent state of hyperarousal. It just wears down the organs, the immune system, the mind. War ages a population just as effectively as a bad diet.
Plus, the educational infrastructure is gone. The average years of schooling there is just 2.7 years.
And you can't build a public health system if you can't train doctors and nurses. It's a cycle of poverty and poor health that is incredibly hard to break.
So when we look at this study as a whole, what we're really seeing is it's a map of privilege.
It really challenges that individualistic view of health, doesn't it? We tend to think, if I just do enough yoga and eat enough kale, I'll live forever.
And those things help. I am not telling anyone to stop eating kale.
Please don't stop. But this data shows your environment does the heavy lifting. Swimming upstream is exhausting. If you live in Singapore, the government is handing you a step counter and subsidizing your salad. You're swimming with the current.
Versus somewhere like Papua New Guinea, where you're just fighting for basic nutrition, or even the U.S., where the healthcare system is so reactive instead of proactive.
Right. It prompts a really interesting question for all of us. I mean, we can't all move to Switzerland tomorrow, but can we replicate some of those super ager traits in our own, micro environments?
Create your own little blue zone.
Exactly. Can you build a social circle that lowers your stress, like the Italians do? We know loneliness is as dangerous as smoking. So socializing is actually a health intervention.
Can you curate your pantry like the Japanese? Stock up on the kimchi and the fish.
Can you, bribe yourself to walk more, like the Singaporean government does?
Whatever works. If I have to pay myself $5 to go for a run, maybe that's what I should do.
It's about hacking your own environment so that the healthy choice becomes the default choice.
So here is the thought I want to leave everyone with today. We saw how powerful that Italian lunch effect is, just taking time to slow down. So look at your own week. What is one thing your workplace or your social circle pressures you to do that is probably speeding up your aging clock?
Is it the sad desk salad?
It might be the sad desk salad, or the lack of sleep because you're answering emails at midnight, or the constant doom scrolling. What would happen if you just opted out of that one thing?
A little rebellion for the sake of your future self. I like it.
Exactly. 76 can be the new 65.
Yeah.
But only if we work for it. Thanks for diving in with us.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Catch you next time.